This is an absolute steal for the New York Rangers, as a new report has revealed trade destinations for one of their best young players. But in the midst of these rumors, a new trade target has been revealed. We're going to break down who this is and why this trade would completely change the New York Rangers roster. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Rangers Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 74% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the New York Rangers, this is the place to be for all your daily New York Rangers coverage. And of course, it's free. Go down below, hit that subscribe button, and again, you get to stay up to date with everything New York Rangers. But let's dive right into it. There are rumors swirling like crazy right now, and this report from Jesse and the Hockey Writers suggests 6 possible destinations for Alexis Lafreniere. Now, we know that Chris Kreider's probably on the way out. Mika Zibanejad, there's a question mark there, but Alexis Lafreniere, people are already eager to give up on Lafreniere. I have to say, I'm going to go on record now, and I've said it before, I think Mike Sullivan is going to unlock this player. And hey, if it doesn't work out, be sure to come back to this video in a year's time and clown on me, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I do think that Mike Sullivan is going to be able to unlock this player, but again, we'll see what happens. But they want to put last season behind them. This is basically what the article is saying. And there are a few destinations that have been listed, but I think there's another trade scenario, which we'll get to in just a minute, that has kind of emerged out of nowhere that could make a lot of sense for the Rangers, and we'll get into what it means for the team. But again, a lot of the destinations in this article include the Mammoth, which is weird to say at this point. Utah now has a new name, the Utah Mammoth, the Calgary Flames, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Chicago Blackhawks. Another dark horse a lot of people are throwing out there is the Montreal Canadiens. There's no smoke there whatsoever, I think, and I don't think they want Alexis Lafreniere, which is, again, what this is saying here, considering the Quebec connection, obviously Lafreniere being from Quebec. That could make some sense in that way, but otherwise I don't think it makes sense in terms of salary, and they have a lot of decisions to make this offseason as well. If you look at the Utah Mammoth, I mean, their projected salary next season of $22 million. They're probably going to be active this offseason. It could be via free agency. It could be via trade. We'll see what happens with that. Could include Alexis Lafreniere, of course. And then if you look at the Chicago Blackhawks as well, they have a ton of salary cap space, and they're looking to make a big splash this offseason in terms of trade or free agency because they need players to play with Connor Bedard, whether they're old or young, but guys who can make a difference. And I think, Alexis Lafreniere, we've seen flashes of brilliance from him. But again, we don't know what's going to happen. But Alexis Lafreniere is a curious case. Coming off of last season, I mean, not great. Not a great season. The end of the season before that, the 23-24 season, suggested that this guy was going to be an absolute superstar. He was a point-a-game player in the playoffs in 2024, up until their demise against the Florida Panthers, the eventual Stanley Cup champions. But, it suggested that he was going to be a great player coming into this year. The first month of this season, he was also very good. As soon as he signed that contract, the 50 games that followed that contract, he had 25 points. He was half a point-a-game player after signing that contract extension, which kicks in this season coming. So, again, if you look at the advanced analytics, maybe it's not a good idea to trade him. Maybe it's a good idea to see what he can do under a coach who knows how to, utilize younger players. So we'll see what happens next season. I don't think they're going to trade him, but there's an interesting trade idea out there right now. And again, there's a lot of articles flying out there. Marco's saying that there's no merit to these specifically, that these won't happen. But there is one flying around that a lot of people are talking about. And again, you can see the reaction from Habs fans. How do you feel about Marco Rossi from the Minnesota Wild? Now, the Bleacher Report, and a lot of people out of Minnesota as well are reporting that Marco Rossi are not, it's not happening. They're not going to re-sign. He's not going to stay there. He's unhappy with the organization because of how he was utilized last season. I mean, this is a second-line center on most teams who's playing fourth-line center for them in the playoffs, and then they ultimately lost in the first round. Go figure. So the Bleacher Report, again, writer Adam Getz is mentioning that maybe the Minnesota Wild move the former first overall pick move for the former first overall pick in Alexis Lafreniere for center Marco Rossi. It's an interesting idea. He's a center. I don't know where he would play with the Rangers. Like, you got to move somebody to the wing. Trocheck, JT Miller's staying at center, so I don't know who you're moving to the wing because this guy's got to play in the top two lines. He's a second line center. But I think it's a very, very enticing, interesting opportunity that you just signed Alexis Lafreniere to a contract extension. It looks like maybe it's not working out. I would like to give him maybe one more season, see how that works out. But you have an interesting opportunity to make a splash right now with a guy that you know can make a difference. Marco Rossi is a difference maker. If we take a look at his stats last season, again, and keep in mind, he's only 23 years old. He had 60 points in 82 games. He's ready to go off. He needs some help there in Minnesota. And obviously, he was not being utilized properly either. I feel like this guy can be over a point a game player if in the right situation. So I think that it's a very interesting opportunity. Again, he's a centerman. He can play the wing, but he is a natural centerman. He played center in junior as well. And again, he can play the wing, but I think that he's better suited at the center position. If you look in comparison to what Lafreniere did, same amount of games played, Lafreniere only had 45 points last year. They're the same age. One can play center, so obviously that's more valuable. I think this is an interesting idea for an organization. If you look at the Minnesota Wild's perspective on this, they're not going to retain Marco Rossi. They're probably going to have to trade him. Somebody might offer sheet him. They might get some compensation for it. I don't think an offer sheet is likely with him because we know the situation. But if you look at the Minnesota Wild's perspective, you're going to lose a second line center that has scored, that we're not utilizing as a second line center, that scored 60 points last year. We're just going to lose him. So why don't we bring in a guy who scored 45 points last year? He can play the wing, he can play top line, which we've seen maybe not well in New York over the last year, but he can play top line. He scored 45 points, but his ceiling is very high, especially if we get into the playoffs, right? He's a playoff performer, at least what we've seen so far. It seems that way. But again, kind of quiet this season. So I think it's an interesting opportunity. That's all I'm trying to say right here, that you at least look at it. And one other thing I wanted to bring up is, this is from Scotia Stat Projections as well. His projected salary right now is hovering at $6 million, which would be cheaper. Again, I think it's going to be more expensive than what these projections are at, but this is a very good model, great tool to kind of see it. The most likely, salary is around $6 million for Marco Rossi. So again, it's an interesting idea. If you can get him for like $7 million, you're still saving money on Lafreniere, and you got a guy who can play second line center. He's only 23, and I feel like he can put up a point a game. I really do, in a good situation. So it's a very interesting opportunity that I think that the Rangers could take advantage of this offseason. And again, the rumors of Marco Rossi being on the block are crazy to me. If they're true, you draft a legit number 1C and then trade him in his prime at 24 years old would be a brain dead move for the Minnesota Wild. And if you look at all the advanced analytics, 5-on-5 offense, the 91st percentile, 5-on-5 defense, 84th percentile, very high. In terms of offense, 5-on-5, he's ranked elite by this model, right? Everything, power play, shot efficiency, high, in the 80 percentile, again, penalty differential, 91 percentile. This is an elite player. This is an elite player that you have the opportunity to get. Now, are the Minnesota Wild going to give him away for free? No, but again, you have the Wild in an opportunity, in a position here where they're going, we might lose this guy for nothing. We're just going to lose this guy at this point. He doesn't want to return. You know, there's some back and forth between him and the organization, and they're not utilizing him properly. If you go, hey, Lafreniere still has very high potential here. We've seen flashes. Why don't we do a little 1-for-1 or something like that? I think you can take advantage of a really good opportunity here. So let me know in the comments what you think about this trade scenario. Trade rumors are absolutely, escalating, intensifying out there. But this one is very interesting, and I think that the Rangers, if they could take advantage of that, again, just move somebody to the wing, have Marco Rossi play center. You could fill up the middle of the ice very well. And again, where are you going to get the salary cap? A lot of people are going to be saying that. If you move Alexis Lafreniere, especially going into next season, you do free up $7 million, and you can just sign Marco Rossi for $7 to $8 million. And he's going to be an elite centerman. It's going to be a really good opportunity. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything New York Rangers.